Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of Sirhan on X, live from Cincinnati, Ohio, in the United States. Hope everyone had themselves a wonderful 1st of May of the calendar year 2025. May is finally here. Felt like it took forever with all the cold weather and the storms that passed through much of the country and the world, especially here in Cincinnati. But here we are close to the halfway point of the calendar year 2025. Hope everyone has had themselves a wonderful day, week, and year. I'm going to get right down to it. Knock down some NFL conversation here real quick. After trying to put him out in the trade block, I guess, and for whatever reason, now it looks like the Green Bay Packers are going to try and reconcile with their standout cornerback, Jaire Alexander. Who's in the midst of trade talks, possibly released as a cap casualty. Now, I guess the draft didn't turn out the way they wanted, so I guess they're now going to try and reconcile with him for the 2025 season. But they said everything is on the table. You're talking about a top 10 cornerback in the NFL, and I know the relationship between Alexander and the Packers sometimes has been very hit and miss. I know Alexander at times has sort of voices frustrations, but if you're the Packers, I get it. The asking price was probably steep. And for a cornerback of Jaire Alexander's, caliber at that position, it probably should be. But if you're the Packers, you got to find a way to work this out for this season because you're talking about bringing him back for this season. You expect to stay. It's going to take a little bit of work because they were talking about trading him all off season. It was like a point like 90-10 where they thought he was going to be traded, and he was linked to going possibly to a team like Baltimore, where he could have been a nice fit over there with what they do. But now, with everything that transpired with the draft, they now want to go ahead and keep him for the 2025 season and probably make him a part of their roster. We'll see where this one goes. But I'm not going to say damage is done or complete because who knows? Because they now want to bring him back. But you don't just let a top 10 cornerback the caliber of Alexander just leave for nothing or for anything because at a time now in the NFL where it's all receiver dominant and you talk about having to face guys like Justin Jefferson twice a year, the way Green Bay does, and Amon-Ra St. Brown of Detroit, you're going to need a cornerback of his caliber. And I guess Green Bay couldn't find the adequate replacement in the draft that they liked or couldn't yield the offers they wanted because I'm sure the asking price for him was pretty high in the Green Bay end when we consider the stature of a guy like Jaire Alexander. So we'll see what happens in 2025. They expect him to be back. I think he'll be ready to go. He's going to be playing with a chip on his shoulder, I guess, for everything that's happened. We'll see where this one winds up. And on to what's going on in Miami. Of course, there's supposed trade rumors with the standout cornerback, Jalen Ramsey. Remember, he was traded from L.A. to Miami. And now they're talking about him going back to L.A. The thing is, of course, Miami has to swallow that ridiculous contract that they extended to him not too long ago. Probably the right fit for Ramsey at this point because that system and the head coach, Sean McVay, knows what Ramsey can do and what he's capable of doing. But I think at this point for him in his career, he should take a page of what Rod Woodson and Deion Sanders did at the latter stages of their careers, move over from cornerback to safety and basically play it at that position because I think at this stage of his career might be a better fit for him to extend his career, especially talking about coming off the meniscus injury he had not too long ago. Because last year he was basically toasted every time he was on the football field. And I expect Miami to move on from him because they always said they were going to. It's going to come down to what they're willing to give up and what they're willing to take back because they're going to have to probably swallow the contract they restructured with him when he came to Miami from LA originally. And actually, him going back to LA might just be what the doctor ordered for him at this point because they know him. He knows them. It just makes the perfect sense at this point. Maybe you move from cornerback to safety at this stage of his career, like how Deion Sanders did it and how Rod Woodson did it. Probably what be the best thing for him at this point. Still an elite secondary guy for whatever team he goes to. Probably a good piece and additional. We were playing nickel and dime packages in the particular secondaries. I still think he's still good enough, but to ask him to cover number ones like he did not too long ago, I think he's past it. Maybe move to safety might be the best thing for him. So that's my brief touch up on the NFL segment. Actually, one more thing before I proceed. It's been announced here locally that the Bengals are going to release Jermaine Pratt. Basically, the guy fell off the map after the iconic interception he had in the 2021 playoffs against the Raiders. You guys in Cincinnati know the story there. The interception of David Carr on the goal line to seal the 2021 playoff win and eliminate the 30-year playoff drought, which was the laughingstock of Cincinnati forever. But he's fell off the map over the last several years. Probably had the most tackles, but didn't amount to anything because he was still getting cooked. The poignant play was the AFC title game against Kansas City in 22, where he got dragged 10 yards by Isaiah Pacheco of the Chiefs. We know the story there. And, of course, in next season, the season opener, the Browns' offensive line just punked him all over the place, and he's basically been irrelevant ever since. Couldn't get any kind of trade compensation for him, so they're going to probably part ways with him, save about $5 million in cap space. But we know how the organization operates. They're probably not going to do anything with it, so we'll find out what happens down the line. He probably is done here, but still one of the all-time iconic plays in Cincinnati sports history when he intercepted David Carr on the last play of the 2021 wildcard game in Cincinnati to end the 30-year playoff drought. Still going to live forever in Cincinnati sports history. Now I'm going to move on to the NBA. And I said last night, and I reiterated it, and boy, we're going to have some conversations. It was Minnesota beating the Lakers 4-1, officially eliminating them as one of the heavier favorites of the particular series being the Lakers. And Minnesota just went in there, did anything and everything they wanted to. Started out crazy hot, obviously Minnesota did, till Randall and McDaniels got into foul trouble. And then the Lakers, of course, took advantage of it and tried to come on. But you had a feeling the Timberwolves had this game under control from start to finish. I mean, the Lakers had no answer for Julius Randle and Rudy Gobert. I mean, let's get that out of the way. The last thing I would expect is to say is Rudy Gobert and Julius Randle-led team winning a playoff game. And here I'm saying it for the first time ever. But kudos to those two. They basically rule the paint. And it's basically a byproduct of trading Anthony Davis for Luka Doncic and that wild trade that took place mid-season. We know the story with that one. But I said if you were the Lakers, you had Luka Doncic and LeBron James. You could not lose to the Minnesota Timberwolves in the first round. I don't care what the excuses are. You did it, and now you're going to try to face the wrath. Now everybody talks about the Dallas end of the trade for the longest time with Nico Harrison. That part is always going to stick. Now you might have to start to ask questions about the Lakers end of it. Was it worth giving up one of the premier big men and Anthony Davis to get a franchise talent like Luka Doncic and to have this happen to you in the first round against the Minnesota Timberwolves? I mean, it's not a good look overall on their end now because you didn't trade for Luka Doncic to have a first round exit 4-1 to the Minnesota Timberwolves, where 2 of the 4 games was on your home court, and basically both those games you had your butts handed to you on your home court. You had chances to win games 3 and 4 in Minneapolis, and they were down to the wire games, very good ones. But overall, this was not a good look for the Lakers then when it comes to the Luka Doncic trade. I say this respectfully, simply because when you have a premier big man in today's league, like an Anthony Davis, you better find a way to keep him, or if you're going to let him go, you better find somebody suitable to replace him. Now they had a trade at the trade deadline to get a big man from Charlotte. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but that fell through. But if you're going to have a guy like Anthony Davis on your roster, especially how he was manhandled in the paint by Julius Randle, Rudy Gobert, basically throughout the series, you better find a way to keep him or replace him, because what happened last night was a byproduct of letting Anthony Davis go for a generational talent like Luka Doncic. You better have gotten a big man in return in this trade or get a 3-way out of it, because if you're going to let Davis go and have nobody to protect the paint, that's what's going to happen. I mean, what are you going to do? Play LeBron James at the 5? I mean, I'll give LeBron his due. Sensational talent. But there's no way he has a height to match up with guys like Randle or Gobert, who were just men amongst boys. I mean, Gobert was at 27 and 24 last night. That should tell you everything right there. So maybe they go over to the offseason. Might be time to start to build around a Luka Doncic. Now you have him on your roster. You can start to put some pieces together around him, because I'm not sure the ideology trying to build around a 40-some-odd-year-old superstar at this point is going to get you anywhere, because though he's a phenomenal talent in LeBron James, might be time to start to make Luka Doncic your focal point, just like how Dallas did for the longest time. I remember they were just a year removed from going to the NBA Finals and losing to Boston as Doncic as their main piece. I mean, they start to build around Doncic, they're going to eventually be fine, and they may eventually be back. But it's time for a massive philosophical change over there, especially when you were crazy enough to give up a premier big man like Anthony Davis to get him. Because that paint, anybody could do anything and everything they wanted to, and that's what Randall and Gobert did last night, and it showed. But for Minnesota, I'll just throw this out real quick. They're going to be a tough out the rest of the way. I mean, you still have the premier talent in Anthony Edwards, who's probably a top 7 player in the NBA. You have the deep big man roster with Randall, Gobert, and Jalen McDaniels. You have Naz Reid coming off the bench. You added a Dante Devinchenko, who was a key piece of big games for teams like Milwaukee and Golden State. He's going to help out. I mean, whoever playing the second round, I don't know who it's going to be. It's either going to be Golden State or Houston. But whoever plays them is going to have their hands full. I mean, I don't know if Minnesota can beat either of them. Who knows? But as long as you have Anthony Edwards and that dominant front line, they're going to have a chance against anyone in the West. And speaking of LeBron James, now everyone's all over the place with this today. The good, the bad, the pretty, and the ugly, and whatever. Guy's legacy is already established up to this point. But the guy's going out on a whimper, as we all know. I mean, all the acting he does on the court, all the stuff he does on the court, off the court, and it's just not a good look for him at the end. I mean, the guy's already an all-time great. Let's just leave it at that. But I'm not going to entertain the Jordan conversations or any of that anymore, because no way any of those guys would go out on a whimper like that when you're the heavy favorite against a team like Minnesota and you lose 2 games on your home court the way they did. That's a problem. That is a problem. Because as I said along, you get 2 generational talents like LeBron James and Luka Doncic. You could not allow yourself to let the Minnesota Timberwolves beat you twice on your home court. Now, mind you, the two of those wins in LA, they weren't even close. Even though the second one was competitive, basically you had a sense Minnesota just controlled that game from start to finish, especially when they built that early lead in the get-go. The only reason why it was close was because the bigs found themselves in foul trouble for Minnesota and the Lakers capitalized. But even then, you had a feeling Minnesota had that game under control. But this thing with LeBron has gone all over the place. I mean, like I said, I'm not going to put him in the upper echelon of all-time greats simply because that's a different category we're talking about. When you think of guys like Jordan and Kareem and Wilt, Magic Johnson, et cetera, et cetera. But, I mean, I said his prime years were basically when he led Cleveland to the finals in 2007 to when he capped it off with the 2016 finals win when he returned to Cleveland when they came from behind to beat Golden State. Granted, funny circumstances to how that happened. I won't elaborate on them. But that's his prime years right there. Basically, the guy's been basically irrelevant ever since. He got the paper championship in 2020, but that's because of Adam Silver's idiocy. We all know what Adam Silver is made of. But his Laker legacy, he has no Laker legacy. Let's get that out of the way. He's not even a top 20 all-time great Lakers of all time. I mean, am I going to put him over Magic Johnson, Kobe Bryant, Jerry West, Wilt Chamberlain, whose time was brief? I can't put him over him. Shaquille O'Neal, or even a guy like James Worthy, who was a key piece of that Showtime Lakers run and was a Finals MVP in there. He's not anywhere near those guys. I mean, you can forget Jerry West. I mean, he's the logo for a reason. I mean, think about his tenure in LA for a second. I mean, we're going to exclude the championship. You give him credit, but I'm going to screw that for a minute. 2 times they missed the playoffs under his watch. They got swept by Denver. I'm still trying to hear from LeBron fans about that one. Not the real Lakers fans, the LeBron fans. Why he let the Nuggets sweep them. And, of course, the next year, 4-1 loss where 2 of the games they had under control, but they couldn't stop Jamal Murray. And they ran Darvin Ham out of town. And now we have this. LeBron James doesn't have a Laker legacy. His legacy is in the years in Miami and Cleveland. Let's get that out of the way. Some people are trying to put him in the all-time great Lakers and Laker franchise history. And that's not even close. I mean, give me a break. I mean, the guys that have a Laker history established, did it longer for that franchise, more significantly for that franchise, and was better at that franchise for the longest time at their peaks. I mean, forget the top five, as I said before. The top five there for me are simple. It's Magic, Kobe, Jerry West, Kareem, and Shaq. That's the top five. I can't even put them a guy like a Wilt or a good Gingrich or a James Worthy among those guys. We're talking about Laker legacy. Now we're talking about all-time basketball legacy. Okay, different conversation. But Laker legacy, he has no Laker legacy. Let's get that out of the way. I mean, the guy wanted to wear the Laker uniform to say he surpassed Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in the all-time scoring record. Okay, he did. It took him how many years to get it? How many games to do it? And I'm sorry. His Laker legacy, he doesn't even have anything in LA. I mean, you want to talk about his Miami legacy and his Cleveland legacy? Have at it. That is where his prime years and his greatness was shown. What he did in LA is absolutely nothing. I mean, the guy had to manipulate to get Anthony Davis, and it took an Anthony Davis game winner in a playoff game against Denver so they can find a way to get to the finals and the bubble championship to get it. I mean, even the story there, a miss, and that the ball bats out to Anthony Davis and hit the buzzer beater over Nikola Jokic to win one of the games of that particular series. But it was not necessarily a great legacy in LA. And if the Lakers were actually smart, they would find ways to just move on from him and start to build around Luka Doncic. Because I think if they do that, we can see them back at the promised land where they belong with all those banners they have in LA. Because, over there in LA, it's championships or bust regardless. And they need to put together a roster to get to that point. Because at the moment, the roster is not constituted to do anything of significance. But LeBron's legacy will always be in Miami and Cleveland. He doesn't even have one in LA. So everyone who wants to put him in the conversation with the great Lakers, stop it. He doesn't belong. And speaking of the Lakers of last night, this comes out JJ Redick, the head coach, who snapped at some people last night. By the way, shout out to Tom Foy. How are you? Last night, it turns out that JJ Redick went at a reporter and snapped at him for, I guess, questionable substitutions that took place in one of the games in Minnesota. But what happened to JJ Redick in this series? Karma came knocking on his door, and he got it. I mean, for someone who calls the Bob Cousy teams, firemen and plumbers, to calling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a one-trick pony, among many other things that he said on the podcast, to where he slammed Jerry West, of all people, to where West countered him. He got his karma, and it came hard, and it was well-deserved. I mean, well, first of all, he mismanaged his entire series. We get it. The roster wasn't constituted great. I understand it. But still, you're the head coach, and if you're going to act like that, that doesn't signify anything of significance for you, and what does it say about you at the end of the day? Yes, we've had heated coaches at press conferences at all levels. I get it. But this one, if at the professional level, in the NBA playoffs, with the premier franchise in all of sports, all of team sports, you're going to act like that, especially what you've done up to that point to even get the job by slamming greats of the past. For you to act like that and to have the result like that, karma came knocking on your door, JJ Redick, and you got exactly what you deserved. And at the gates of heaven, some of those all-time greats, especially Jerry West, who you slammed every chance you got, was sitting there having a smile on their face, watching you just melt down and just break down and just found your way out the door in LA. And basically, I said all along, I thought they made a mistake firing Darvin Ham because Ham was just 2 years removed from taking the Lakers to the Western Conference Finals against Denver. Of course, subsequently, the Nuggets won the title, which wasn't a bad look. They had the right path. But if you're JJ Redick and you're going to act like that, especially the way you slammed everybody, whatever podcast you're on, for you to come out and lay an egg in this particular playoffs when you had the two premier generational talents, one maybe of all time and one currently, and act the way you did at the press conference, snapping at reporters, is not a good look for you. I said it wasn't the greatest hire for you simply because, for the Lakers, simply because the guy's a podcaster and doesn't even do anything. I mean, even Jerry West said it, one of his final podcasts a couple years ago before, he left this earth. But it's not a good look for JJ Redick to say and do the things he did and for him to come out and lay an egg. Because if you're going to say the things you said about some of the greats, calling other players plumbers and firemen, and calling Kareem Abdul-Jabbar a one-trick pony, and just lay an egg on your home court with generational players on your roster, it's an embarrassing look. Because that one-trick pony named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar happens to be a top 5 Laker, maybe a top 5 all-time player at all levels. And that one-trick pony, just because that one-trick pony found a way to score 38,389 points as a one-trick pony. So you don't have a leg to stand on with that. But karma came knocking on the door of JJ Redick last night, and it was well-deserved. And at this point, I don't know what the hell to do if I were him. Good luck with that. The Lakers, I know a lot of Lakers fans, they deserve better than having JJ Redick as their head coach with the way he carried himself. Shoot, I said it was a mistake firing Darvin Ham, who just took them to the Western Conference Finals 2 years ago. Just whatever happened in LA, they didn't like it, so they gave Ham the boot. Somewhere where he's at, he's probably having a better time right now watching this. I think he's an assistant in Milwaukee, but still, the way the tenure in LA ended, he's probably having fun with it. But I think if the Lakers can rebuild around Luka Doncic correctly, we'll see him back in the top in no time. I swear, I mean, welcome to the days of coaching where when the coach's demeanor set the tone for the rest of the team. I mean, if you're going to have a coach that snaps like that the way JJ Redick did, doesn't set the tone the rest of the way. Now to the historical aspect of the fight game today, because there are two significant moments that need to be discussed. The first one took place at in Chicago Stadium. This was what we forever known as the left hook of perfection. It was the rematch between Sugar Ray Robinson and Gene Fullmer. The first fight, of course, Fullmer got the decision win. In this particular fight, Sugar Ray Robinson was working to land that left hook throughout training camp, and he said he used his right hand as the decoy so he can sucker the tough and durable Gene Fullmer into that left hook. And in the 5th round, he did just that. It was a left hook where Gene Fullmer was just gone. Even Fullmer said after the fight, I don't know where I was at after he hit me. This was perfection at its finest, and probably, you could probably argue, the most perfectly placed left hook in the history of perfectly placed left hooks. Footage is out there. Ray Robinson was always a guy who worked on his craft, worked on his perfection, worked on his style, poetry in motion, should have on this night, suckered Gene Fullmer to thinking he was going to land the right hand all night long. And then when Fullmer fell for the trap, the perfect left hook by Ray Robinson, and that was all she wrote. Forever billed as the left hook of perfection, probably Sugar Ray Robinson's finest punch ever thrown and landed on this particular night that took place at Chicago Stadium in 1957. Against a very, very tough and durable Gene Fullmer, whose track record speaks for itself. Of course, beat Robinson before, had a tough 3-fight series with Dick Tiger, among many others. But that left hook by Ray Robinson, that just pulverized and flattened Gene Fullmer down for the count. Maybe the greatest left hook ever thrown. Maybe the most perfectly placed left hook that was ever placed. Right on the point of the chin. It was something Ray Robinson was driven to do. It was something he wanted to do and was training on and was working on during training camp to prepare for this fight. And he did it. And that was the end of Gene Fullmer. Of course, the Robinson stature, well chronicled, greatest pound-for-pound fighter to ever lace him up, and another exhibit as to why it is. Anything he can do, he did it. I mean, he had an answer for anything and everything. He was just so organic in what he did. I mean, it wasn't fabricated. He didn't have to copy anyone. He was just himself, worked at his craft, became better, and that was what Sugar Ray Robinson was. And a couple years later, another one that took place in Indianapolis. This was Floyd Patterson successfully defending his heavyweight championship against a fellow named Brian London. Interesting tidbit on this one is that the British Boxing Board of Controls prohibited London to fight for this championship to travel abroad for whatever reason. He did not honor the request. He went ahead and went through with it because he wanted a shot at the championship. He fought the standout Floyd Patterson. I bring up Patterson, especially for the Mike Tyson fans, because everybody remembers Mike Tyson as Custom Models project, but before Mike Tyson, he had Floyd Patterson. Similar way, similar style, the peekaboo defense, combinations at all angles. That's what Floyd Patterson was. Basically, from this fight, start to finish, he controlled every minute of every fight, floored him at the end of the 10th, till he put him away in the 11th round, and another successful defense of his heavyweight championship. And it was probably one of the more complete performances of Floyd Patterson's career. And Floyd Patterson's tenure as a heavyweight champion doesn't get talked about enough. Decent resume of his own. Several fights he had, mainly guys like Archie Moore. Of course, known, unfortunately, for being knocked out twice in the first round by Sonny Liston, but Sonny Liston knocked out everyone in the first round at that point. Later on, challenged Ali, among many others. Beat the standout light heavyweight Archie Moore when Moore challenged for the heavyweight championship. And just a very sound and solid career. Maybe the staple for him was the 3-fight series he had with the standout German Ingmar Johansson, who was trying to fill the shoes of Max Schmeling after Max Schmeling got pasted by Joe Louis in 1936. And Johansson could never achieve to the stature that Schmeling did. He did beat Patterson the first time, but Patterson just obliterated Johansson in the second and third fights. One of the more underrated all-time great heavyweight champions was Floyd Patterson. And before the world, especially Mike Tyson fans, heard of Custom Model with Mike Tyson, Custom Model had Floyd Patterson. Also in there, a fellow named Jose Torres was a part of the Custom Model stable. And Torres, a standout light heavyweight, known for many wins of his own, sort of had a bit of a diabolical mindset like Mike Tyson did, similar to Floyd Patterson. Of course, all three came from that part of Catskill, New York, where Custom Model was training and developing fighters. But before he had Mike Tyson, it was Floyd Patterson, his project. And not only was Floyd Patterson the youngest to win the heavyweight championship at that time when he won it, when he got his revenge on Ingmar Johansson, he was the youngest to regain the heavyweight championship. And no one ever broke that record, and probably never will. But an underrated all-time great was Floyd Patterson. Brian London was a tough, durable fighter who gave it as good as he could give, given the circumstances that the British Boxing Board of Controls didn't want him to fly overseas and prevented him from doing it, but he still went ahead and did it and still gave Floyd Patterson a solid effort. But Floyd Patterson was just levels above Brian London. And that was what took place 66 years ago today in Indianapolis. And it's when you think about the standout, the trademark peekaboo style, watch the footage of Floyd Patterson. Almost eerily similar to what Mike Tyson did in his heyday. Patterson was a very standout fighter. Just the only thing that knocked Floyd Patterson to being anything greater than what he was, didn't necessarily have the greatest chin. I mean, that fight with the series with Ingmar Johansson, it was a case of let the bodies hit the floor. I mean, Patterson hit the floor 7 times in that particular 3-fight series. And Johansson wasn't necessarily the greatest puncher, at least perception-wise at the time. But that series with Patterson and Johansson is also much watched. Maybe an underrated trilogy of all time that doesn't get talked about enough. But the second fight when Patterson regained the title from Johansson, history was made. Youngest to ever regain the heavyweight championship. Record is never going to be touched. May God rest the soul of the great Floyd Patterson. Of course, later on became a part of the New York State Athletic Commission team for many, many years. Till, of course, I should add, he had an adopted son, Tracy Harris Patterson, who was a stand-up fighter himself, 2-time world champion in the lighter weight classes. But Floyd Patterson, it was 66 years ago today when he obliterated a tough fighter from England named Brian London, who the British Board of Controls didn't want London to fly for this fight, but he went ahead and did it anyway because he wanted the opportunity to fight for the title. He did it. And as a result, he gave an honest effort, but Patterson was just levels above him. God rest the soul of the great Floyd Patterson. And that will wrap up this edition of Sir Hunt on X. No show until I have a double dip Monday. Monday afternoon, I will have a special show live from a historic site, an historical night that took place in Cincinnati almost 8 decades ago. I will be there and I will chronicle it. For all the fight followers out there, I'm sure you know what it is. I will be back Monday. Have a good rest of the day, tomorrow, and weekend. As always, take care of yourselves first. If you don't take care of yourselves first, nothing else matters. You take care of yourself first, good things will come your way. Stay on the straight and narrow. and all the good things in your life will come your way if you take care of yourself first. Have a good rest of the night. Take care. God bless. Enjoy the day and weekend. I will be back Monday afternoon.